All right, guys, so today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking about drawing kites and squares and then clarifying their attributes. And one thing you just guys need to remember, and you should have a chart in your classroom, is that a square is a rhombus with 4 right angles. It is also a rectangle with 4 equal sides. So we kind of know that a square has 4 equal sides, it has 4 right angles. A kite is a quadrilateral in which 2 consecutive sides have an equal length. That means that the sides that are side by side, so like these have to be equal length, and then these would have to be equal length, which drawing it right now, it's not really perfect or anything, but this is what the example would be, is like these 2 sides would have to be the same, and then these 2 sides right here would have to be the same, okay? So when it's consecutive, it's right next to each other. So it wouldn't be the opposite, which would be called adjacent. It would be consecutive, which would be right next to each other. And then again, another part is that then the other 2 sides do have to be the same. So where it's a little bit different, a rectangle, so remember, like a rectangle has these 2 sides are equal, so the opposite sides are equal. But in a kite, it has to be these sides that are next to each other have to be equal, and then these sides that are next to each other have to be equal. So that's kind of the difference with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some of these shapes first, and it says to draw a rhombus with 2 right angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rhombus, and I know that a rhombus with a right angle, that means that it's going to have almost like that L shape to it. Okay, so I know that that is a 90-degree angle. So there's one. Let's see here. Here is another one, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish up my shape. And it just so happens that all of them are going to have that 90-degree angle, which is okay because it doesn't say only 2, it says with 2 right angles, so I could have more than one. The next one says a kite with equal sides. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a kite, and I'm going to do 3. And then I'm going to do another 3. So I'm going to make sure that and I'm using millimeters just because I've got such a small piece of paper here. So I need to do 3. And this one, there might be some erasing that might need to be done just to make sure that it stays equal with that, so that I know that all 3 of these sides right now are equal. And if you kind of look at it, you're like, well, a kite, isn't that what we would call a diamond? It is. So a diamond technically is a kite. Okay. The next one, it says a kite with 4 right angles. Okay. So I'm going to make my kite 4 millimeters. And remember that the sides have to be equal. So just remember that on here, that as long as these 2 sides are equal and these 2 sides are equal, then it's a kite. They could all have the same length. It just had to make sure that all of them were equal length, which this one I might have to, that'll be okay. It's not going to be completely perfect. And I know that these all have 4 right angles. Okay. And then the next one, it says a kite with 2 pair of adjacent sides equal. So that means that I need to have 2 sides that are equal to each other, and then the other 2 have to be equal to them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to make this one, I'm going to make this 3. So I'm going to make this one 3 as well, so that they are equal in length. So they're both 3. And then down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and this one I might have to kind of draw a little bit, like kind of look to see what I've got, is I'm going to try to make it to be 2 millimeters. Let's see here. So I might need to move that line just a little bit more to make that, because this is where that 2 millimeters is. And it's okay if you have to kind of redraw some of this a bit to make sure that it does match. I mean, I'm not going to be completely like getting my ruler out to check to make sure that it is complete. It is a little difficult sometimes. See, even this line's not necessarily the straightest. But as long as it is pretty close, that's good. Okay, so now what it wants us to do though is it wants us to write if it has more than one name. So let's take a look at this one. I know that it's a rhombus because that's what I created. Okay, it does look like a quadrilateral. Because remember, quadrilateral is a shape that has 4 sides. It is a parallelogram because all the sides are parallel, or at least have one side that is parallel. It's a square. Okay, we can also call it a rectangle. We can also call it a, let's see, a rhombus, quadrilateral. We can call it a kite. And we can also call it a trapezoid. Okay, so kind of crazy how certain shapes that I've got that I drew can have all of those figures or features to it. So it's kind of weird. This next one is a kite with all equal sides again. So I know I'm going to call it a kite. I'm also going to call it a quadrilateral. I am going to call it a parallelogram. I am going to call it a trapezoid. And I'm going to call it a rhombus. Okay, the reason why I haven't called it a square is because I don't have the 90-degree angles. And the reason why I can't call it a rectangle is because remember, a rectangle, they have to have 2 sides that are going to be of equal length. And all of these, it looks like they are all equal sides because it does say all equal sides. Okay, this one is going to be basically, I think, the same one up here. So I'm just going to circle this, and so I'm not going to take the time to rewrite this, but this shape is also a rhombus, a quadrilateral, a parallelogram, a square, a rectangle, a kite, and a trapezoid because it has all of those features it needs to have, okay? This last kite that we have that I've drawn is a kite. It can also be a quadrilateral. And that is it. It can't be a parallelogram because I do not have those 2 sides that are parallel to each other. Because if you kind of look here, no matter what, this is eventually going to intersect with that one. Same thing here, like if I were to continue to draw it. So that's why those are those only 2 shapes. So the next thing it says for number 2, it says to measure the angles of the figures with your protractor. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to measure them. And on these ones, they're pretty simple because I already know that they're all 90-degree angles. So I'm just kind of going around and checking, and they all are, so we are good there. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to label them as 90 degrees. Okay, and then on this one, I'm going to measure here, and this one, the best that I can do, I'm just going to kind of draw that line. I'm going to say this is about 103. Okay. I'm going to look at this one. And let's see here. I'm going to say this one. Oh, it's kind of hard. I'm going to say 77 degrees. Okay. And then this one, I'm going to say is 103 degrees as well. And so if you kind of look at the pattern on this, I bet you could probably guess what this one is going to be, that this one's also going to be that 77 degrees. Okay. Same thing here. This one I know is a 90-degree angle kind of going all the way around, and I can just kind of double check, and it does go. Okay, so I'm going to label each of these as 90 degrees. Okay, and then on this one, let's start with this one. Let's go right here. I've got it lined up. And I'm going to say this one's about 68 degrees. And so that's about 78 degrees. Okay, And this one, oh, that's a pretty big one. Let's look here. I'm going to say it's about 128 degrees. And then this one, let's say about 82 degrees. Okay, so then what it says, now that I've measured them, it says to use a crayon or a marker to circle the angles that are equal in measure inside of them. So basically what I want to do is I want to look to see which ones are equal. So I know that these are equal, these are equal. Okay, these are equal, and then these are equal. When I look here, these ones are equal right here. Okay, and then on my last one, I do not have any equal. I should have one, but I think part of it is just how it's drawn, and it is a little confusing to be able to draw it perfectly, just knowing that we do have the same shape, or sorry, the same equal sides.